In the fog-choked village of Eldermoor, where no one dares step outside after dusk, a clock tower chimes at an hour that doesn't exist. Lila Wren, clutching a strange black key that burns her hand, discovers her family's secret. The tower's door leads to a place of spinning, wrong stars, and something alive is watching from the other side. With shadows closing in and a cryptic journal as her only guide, Lila must unravel the tower's deadly pact before the next chime swallows the village whole. Chapter 1. The first Tolder village of Eldermoor sat quiet, tucked in a valley where fog clung like a heavy blanket. Old stone houses leaned into each other, their roofs sagging under years of rain and secrets. At the village's edge, a stood, tall and crooked, its black stones streaked with moss. Nobody knew when it was built, or by whom. It just was always there, always silent. Until tonight, Lila Wren, barely 16, pulled her wool coat tight against the chill. Her boots crunched on the gravel path as she hurried home from the baker's shop, a loaf of rye bread under her arm. The air smelled of damp earth and something sharp, like iron. She glanced at the clock tower, its face glowing pale under the moon. The hands were stuck at midnight, same as always. Nobody fixed it. Nobody dared climb the creaky steps inside. The village had rules about the tower. Don't touch the stones. Don't linger after dark. Don't listen if it chimes. Lila's grandma, Old Nan, told her those rules since she was small, her voice low and serious. The tower's cursed, she'd say, eyes wide. It wakes things that should sleep. Lila thought it was just a story to scare kids, like tales of ghosts in the woods. But tonight, the air felt wrong, heavy, like it was waiting. She passed the village square, where lamplights flickered weakly. The fog was thicker here, curling around her ankles like fingers. She quickened her pace, her breath puffing in the cold. Then it happened. A deep, hollow bong rolled through the valley. Lila froze. The sound came from the clock tower, loud and slow, shaking the ground under her feet. It wasn't midnight. It wasn't any time. The tower hadn't chimed in years. Another bong. Her heart thumped. She looked back. The clock's hands twitched, jerking to 1 o'clock, then back to midnight. The fog pulsed, like it was breathing. Lila clutched the bread, tighter, her knuckles white. Just a bell, she whispered to herself. Just a stupid old bell. But her legs wouldn't move. The third chime came, deeper, longer, and with it, a shadow moved in the fog. It wasn't a person. Too tall, too thin, its edges blurry like smoke. It drifted across the square, silent, toward the clock tower. Lila's mouth went dry. She wanted to run, but her feet felt glued to the path. The shadow stopped, turned, and though it had no face, she felt it see her. A coldness crawled up her spine, like ice in her bones. Then the shadow slipped into the tower's open door. Gone. Lila ran. Her boots slapped the ground, the bread nearly slipping from her hands. She didn't stop until she reached her grandma's cottage, its windows glowing warm. She burst inside, slamming the door. Old Nan sat by the fire, knitting her grey hair, tucked under a scarf. She looked up, sharp eyes narrowing. "What's got you spooked, girl?" "The tower," Lila gasped, dropping the bread on the table. "It chimed. I saw something." Old Nan's needles stopped. Her face went pale, like she'd seen a ghost herself. "You heard it." 3 times, Lila said, her voice shaking, and a shadow, tall. It went inside the tower. Old Nan stood, slow and stiff, and crossed to the window. She peered into the fog, her lips moving like she was praying. "It's begun," she muttered. "I hoped it wouldn't. Not in my time." "What's begun?" Lila asked, her stomach twisting. "What's in the tower?" Old Nan turned, her eyes hard. "Something older than this village, older than the hills. The chimes call it, and it answers." Lila wanted to laugh, to call it nonsense, but the cold in her bones wouldn't let her. "What do we do?" "We don't," Old Nan said. "We stay inside, lock the doors, and pray it passes." But Lila couldn't sit still. The chime's echo lingered in her head, pulling her thoughts back to the tower. She thought of her friend Thom, the blacksmith's son, who loved poking into places he shouldn't. He'd want to know. He'd want to see. She grabbed her coat. "Where you going?" Old Nan snapped. "To warn Thom," Lila said. "He's always talking about exploring the tower. If it's dangerous, he needs to know." Old Nan grabbed her arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "You stay away from that place. You hear me? The tower's no place for the living tonight." Lila pulled free. "I'll be quick, I promise." Before Old Nan could argue, she slipped out the door. The fog was thicker now, swallowing the village. Lila kept to the shadows, her heart pounding. The clock tower loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the moon. She reached Thom's house, a squat building by the forge. She tapped the window, whispering, "Thom, you there?" A moment later, Thom's face appeared, his dark hair messy, his eyes bright with curiosity. He was 17, tall and wiry, always grinning like he knew. "A secret, Lila. What's wrong?" The tower chimed. She said, "I saw something go inside, something not human." Thom's grin faded. "You're serious? Come see for yourself." He didn't hesitate. Thom grabbed his coat and a lantern, its light barely cutting through the fog. They crept toward the square, the village silent except for their footsteps. The clock tower stood like a giant, its door a black mouth. Lila pointed. "There, that's where it went." Thom squinted. "You sure it wasn't just the fog playing tricks?" "I know what I saw," Lila said, her voice sharp. "And the chimes. You can't fake that." Thom stepped closer to the tower, holding the lantern high. The light caught the stone, showing carvings Lila hadn't noticed before, strange shapes, like eyes and spirals, twisting into each other. "Look at this," Thom whispered. "These aren't normal." Lila's skin prickled. The carvings seemed to move, shifting in the lantern's glow. "We should go," she said, but Thom was already at the door. "Just a peek," he said, stepping inside. "Thom." "No," Lila hissed. But he was gone. She cursed under her breath and followed, her heart racing. The tower's inside was cold, the air thick with dust, and something sour, like old metal. The lantern lit up a spiral staircase, its steps worn and uneven. Thom was halfway up, his shadow dancing on the walls. "Slow down," Lila called, climbing. After him, the stairs creaked, each step echoing like a heartbeat. At the top, they found a round room, the clock's gears looming above. They were huge, rusted, and still, yet they hummed faintly, like a distant song. Thom touched a gear, and the hum stopped. Silence pressed in, heavy and wrong. "What is this place?" he whispered. Before Lila could answer, the tower shook. A low bong filled the room, so loud it hurt her ears. The gears twitched, then spun, slow at first, then faster. Shadows moved in the corners, tall and thin, like the one Lila saw. They drifted closer, their edges fraying like smoke. "Thom, run." Lila grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the stairs, but the shadows moved faster, circling them. One reached out, its touch cold as death, brushing Lila's cheek. She screamed, stumbling back. Thom swung the lantern, but it passed through the shadow like air. The chime rang again, and the shadows froze. A voice came, not from the shadows but from the gears themselves, low and rough, like stones grinding. "You woke us," it said. "You will see." The shadows vanished. The gears stopped. Lila and Thom stood, panting, in the sudden quiet. "What was that?" Thom asked, his voice shaking. "I don't know," Lila said. "But we need to get out." They ran down the stairs, the tower groaning around them. Outside, the fog was thicker, the village gone, swallowed by white. Lila's heart sank. "Where's everything?" Thom held the lantern, but its light showed only fog. "We're still in Eldermoor," he said, but he didn't sound sure. They walked, hoping to find the square, but the ground felt wrong, soft, like it might give way. The air grew colder, the smell of iron stronger. Then they saw it, a figure in the fog, tall and thin, its head tilted like it was listening. It didn't move, but Lila felt its eyes, even without a face. "Don't look at it," she whispered, grabbing Thom's hand. They backed away, but the fog shifted, and more figures appeared, circling them. Each was different, some tall, some hunched, some with arms too long, but all were wrong, like they didn't belong in this world. The clock tower chimed again, a single bong that shook the air. The figures vanished, and the fog parted, showing the village square. The houses were there, the lamplights flickering, but something was off. The windows were dark, the air too still. Lila's stomach twisted. "This isn't right." Thom nodded, his face pale. "Let's get to your grandma. She'll know what to do." They ran to Old Nan's cottage, the fog chasing their heels. Inside, Old Nan was by the fire, her knitting untouched. She looked up, her eyes wide. "You went in," she said, not a question. Lila nodded, her throat tight. "We saw them. Shadows." They spoke. Old Nan's hands shook. She stood, crossing to a locked chest in the corner. She pulled out a book, its cover worn leather, its pages yellowed. "This was your great-grandfather's," she said. "He was the last keeper of the tower." Lila opened the book. The pages were filled with tight, slanted writing and drawings of the tower, the gears, and strange symbols like the carvings on the stone. One page showed a sketch of a shadow, tall and thin, with words beneath. "They come when the chime calls. They see what we cannot." "What are they?" Lila asked. Old Nan sat, her voice low. "The tower isn't just a clock, it's a door. Long ago, the village made a deal to keep it shut, but the chimes, they're a warning. Something's trying to get through." Thom leaned over, reading the book. "Through from where?" Old Nan looked at the fire, her face grim. "From somewhere else. Somewhere the stars don't shine." Lila's skin crawled. She thought of the shadow's touch, the voice in the gears. "How do we stop it?" Old Nan shook her head. "You don't. You hide, you pray, and you never go back to the tower." But Lila couldn't shake the feeling that hiding wasn't enough. The chimes were in her head, pulling her back. She looked at Thom, his eyes bright with the same stubborn spark she felt. "They wouldn't hide. They COULDN." Single quotes stood outside. The fog pressed against the windows, and in the distance, the clock tower chimed again. The night dragged on, and Lila couldn't sleep. The book lay open on her lap, its pages heavy with secrets. She traced the shadow's sketch, her finger lingering on the words. "They see what we cannot." What did that mean? What did the shadows want? She thought of the village, quiet and small, its people unaware of the danger. If the tower was a door, what was on the other side? Thom stayed, sitting by the fire, poking at the logs. "We need to go back," he said finally, "to figure out what's happening." Old Nan was asleep, her breathing soft. Lila nodded. "Tomorrow, at dawn, before the fog gets worse." They planned in whispers, afraid to wake Old Nan. The book mentioned a key, hidden in the tower, that could lock the door forever. But it also warned of a price, something the shadows would demand. Lila didn't care. She couldn't let the village fall to whatever was coming. Dawn came, grey and cold. The fog hadn't lifted, but it was thinner, letting them see the shape. They crept out, Lila, with the book tucked under her coat, Thom with his lantern. The village was silent, the houses dark. It felt like they were the only ones left. At the tower, the door was still open, the carvings sharper in the morning light. Lila hesitated, her hand on the stone. It was cold, almost burning. "You ready?" she asked. Thom nodded, but his jaw was tight. They stepped inside, the air heavy with that sour, metallic smell. The stairs creaked louder this time, like the tower was warning them. At the top, the gears were still, but the hum was back, low and steady. Lila opened the book, finding a page with a drawing of the gears. It showed a hidden panel, marked with a spiral. "There," she said, pointing to the largest gear. Thom pushed it, and a click echoed. A small door opened in the wall, revealing a box carved with the same strange symbols. Inside was a key, black and heavy, its surface etched with tiny stars. Lila picked it up, and the hum stopped. The air grew colder, the shadows flickering in the corners. "They know we're here," she whispered. Thom raised the lantern, but the light was dimming, like something was eating it. A voice came again, from the gears, slow and deep. "You hold the key, but you cannot lock what is already open." Lila's hand shook, the key heavy in her palm. "What's open?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The shadows grew, filling the room. They didn't move, didn't speak, but their presence pressed against her, heavy and cold. The tower chimed, a single bong that made her ears ring. The shadows leaned closer, and for a moment, Lila saw something in their darkness, stars, endless and wrong, spinning in a void. She grabbed Thom's hand, and they ran, the key clutched tight. The stairs seemed longer, the tower groaning like it was alive. Outside, the fog was waiting, thicker than ever. The village was gone again, lost in white. Lila looked at the key, its stars glinting faintly. She didn't know what it opened or what it locked, but she knew one thing: the shadows weren't done with them, and the chimes would call again. Chapter 2. Fog over Eldermoor. Lila clutched the black key, its starry etchings sharp against her palm. The fog swallowed Eldermoor, hiding the village's stone houses and twisting paths. She and Thom stood outside the clock tower, their breaths puffing in the cold dawn air. The tower loomed behind them, its door a dark gap, like a mouth waiting to snap shut. The single chime from minutes ago still rang in Lila's ears, low and heavy, like a warning she couldn't shake. Thom held the lantern, its weak light barely cutting through the fog. "Where's the village?" he asked, his voice tight. His dark hair stuck to his forehead, damp from the mist. It was right there. Lila turned, squinting into the white haze. The square, the lamplights, the bakery gone. Just fog, thick and heavy, curling like smoke. "It's still there," she said, trying to sound sure. "We just can't see it." But she wasn't sure. The ground felt soft, like it might sink under her feet. The air smelled wrong sharp, like rusted iron, mixed with something sour she couldn't name. The key in her hand felt heavier, almost alive, its cold metal tingling against her skin. She stuffed it into her coat pocket, next to her great-grandfather's book, and grabbed Thom's arm. "We need to find Old Nan." Thom nodded, but his eyes flicked to the tower. "What about the shadows?" That voice. Lila shivered, remembering the gear's words. "You hold the key, but you cannot lock what is already open. We'll figure it out at home. Come on." They walked, keeping close, the lantern swinging. Between them, the fog pressed in, muffling their steps. Lila's boots sank slightly into the ground, each step slower than the last. She tried to picture the path to Old Nan's cottage past the square, left at the baker's, straight to the oak tree by the stream. But nothing looked right. No trees, no stream, just endless white. "Something's wrong," Thom whispered. He stopped, holding the lantern higher. The light caught a shape in the fog, tall, thin, blurry at the edges. A shadow, like the one Lila saw last night. It stood still, its head tilted, like it was listening. Lila's heart pounded. "Don't look," she hissed, pulling Thom back. But another shape appeared to their left, then another to their right. The shadows didn't move, but she felt them watching, their presence heavy, like stones on her chest. "Run," she said, her voice barely a whisper. They bolted, the lantern swinging wildly. The fog swirled, thick and cold, wrapping around them like hands. Lila's lungs burned, her legs heavy. She didn't know where they were running, only that they had to get away. The shadows didn't follow, but their stillness was worse, like they knew something Lila didn't. The ground hardened underfoot, and a shape loomed ahead, a low, crooked house. Old Nan's cottage. Relief flooded Lila, but it didn't last. The windows were dark, the door shut tight. No smoke curled from the chimney. "She's always up by now," Lila said, her stomach twisting. Thom banged on the door. "Nan, it's us." No answer. He pushed, and the door creaked open, unlocked. Inside, the fire was out, the room cold. Old Nan's knitting lay on the chair, needles stuck in a half-finished scarf. The chest where she kept the book was open, its lid tilted like someone left in a hurry. "Nan," Lila called, her voice echoing. She checked the tiny bedroom, the kitchen, even the back porch. "Empty." "She's gone," she said, her throat tight. "She never leaves without locking up." Thom picked up the scarf, frowning. "Maybe she went looking for us." "In this fog?" Lila shook her head. "She warned us to stay away from the tower. She'd never go near it." The key in her pocket felt heavier, like it was pulling her down. She pulled it out, its starry etchings glinting faintly, even without light. "This did something," she said. "When I took it, the shadows came closer." The voice spoke. Thom stared at the key, his face pale. "The book, maybe it says what the key does." Lila pulled out her great-grandfather's journal, its leather cover worn and soft. She flipped through the pages, her hands shaking. The sketches of the tower and gears stared back, their lines sharp and strange. She found a page with a drawing of the key, its stars matching the one in her hand. Below it, in tight, slanted writing, were words. "The key binds the door, but blood wakes the watchers. One opens, one closes. Choose wisely." "Blood," Thom said, reading over her shoulder. "What's that mean?" "I don't know," Lila said, "but it says the key binds the door. Maybe it can stop the chimes, or make them worse." Thom said. He pointed to another line. "The watchers see through time. They guard what lies beyond, those shadows. They're the watchers, aren't they?" Lila nodded, her skin prickling. The shadow's starry eyes flashed in her mind, endless and wrong. "We need to find Nan. She knows more than she told us." They left the cottage, stepping back into the fog. It was thicker now, the air colder, the iron smell stronger. Lila held the book tight, the key in her pocket. Thom's lantern flickered, its light dimming. "This thing's dying," he muttered, shaking it. "We need to hurry." They walked, guessing the way to the village square. The fog played tricks, stretching shapes into monsters, then melting them away. Lila's heart raced every time a shadow flickered, but none stayed long enough to be sure. The ground shifted again, soft and spongy, like walking on a grave. A low hum started, faint at first, then louder. It came from everywhere, vibrating in Lila's chest. "The tower," she said. "It's starting again." Thom grabbed her hand. "This way." He pulled her toward the sound, the hum growing into a pulse, like a heartbeat in the earth. The fog parted, and the clock tower appeared, its black stones gleaming wet. The door was still open, the carvings sharper, their eyes and spirals twisting. "In the dim light, we shouldn't go in," Lila said, her voice shaking. But the hum pulled her, like a thread tied to her bones. The key in her pocket buzzed, matching the tower's pulse. Thom stepped closer, his lantern barely glowing. "We need answers. Nan might be in there." Lila wanted to argue, but the thought of Old Nan alone may be trapped pushed her forward. They stepped inside, the air cold and sour. The spiral staircase loomed, its steps creaking under their weight. The hum was louder here, coming from the gears above at the top. The gear room was darker, the shadows thicker. The gears were still, but the hum filled the air, heavy and alive. Lila opened the book, finding the page with the key. "It says the key binds the door. But where's the door?" Thom scanned the room, his lantern flickering there. He pointed to the wall behind the gears, where a faint outline glowed, shaped like a door with starry carvings. The key's etchings matched it perfectly. Lila's hand shook as she pulled out the key. "What if it's the wrong choice?" Thom's jaw tightened. "We can't just wait. The shadows are coming." "You felt them?" She nodded, her mouth dry. The hum grew louder, the gears twitching. She stepped to the door, the key warm in her hand. The outline pulsed, like it was breathing. She pressed the key to the center, where a starry lock glowed. It fit perfectly, clicking into place. The hum stopped. Silence pressed in, heavy and wrong. Then the gears spun, fast and loud, shaking the tower. A low bong rang out, deeper than before, rattling Lila's teeth. Shadows poured from the walls, tall and thin, their starry eyes blazing. They didn't move, but their presence crushed her, like air too thick to breathe. "You opened it," the voice said, coming from the gears, the walls, the air itself. "Now you see." The door glowed, its edges cracking like broken glass. Beyond it, Lila saw stars, not the sky's stars, but something else, endless and spinning, pulling at her mind. She stumbled back, the key falling to the floor. Thom grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the stairs. "Go." They ran, the tower shaking, the shadows watching. The chimes rang again, 3 times, each one louder, each one pulling at Lila's heart. Outside, the fog was alive, swirling like a storm. The village was still gone, but shapes moved in the mist, houses, trees, people, all blurry, like a dream fading. Lila picked up the key, her hands shaking. "We made it worse," she said, her voice breaking. The doors open. Thom's face was pale, his lantern dead. "We need to find Nan. She know how to fix this." They ran, the fog chasing them, the shadow's eyes burning in the distance. Lila's mind raced, the book's words looping. "Blood wakes the watchers. One opens, one closes." What had they done? What was coming? They reached the square, or what was left of it. The lamplights were out, the stones cracked, like years had passed in hours. A figure stood by the fountain, small and hunched. "Nan," Lila called, running to her. Old Nan turned, her face pale, her eyes wide. "You fools," she said, her voice sharp. "You used the key." "We had to," Lila said, holding out the book. It said the key binds the door. Old Nan snatched the book, flipping to the page. Her fingers traced the words, her lips moving silently. "You didn't bind it. You woke it. The watchers are free." "Who are they?" Thom asked, his voice shaking. Old Nan looked at the tower, its silhouette sharp in the fog. "They're not from here. Not from our world. The tower holds a door to their place, a place of no light, no time. The chimes call them. The key lets them through." Lila's stomach dropped. "How do we stop them?" Old Nan's eyes darkened. "You don't, not without blood." The fog thickened, the hum returning, low and steady. Shadows moved closer, their starry eyes glinting. Lila gripped the key, its stars burning her hand. The tower chimed again, and the world seemed to tilt, the fog swallowing everything but the three of them. "We need to go back," Lila said, her voice steady despite her fear. "To the tower, to the door." Old Nan shook her head. "You don't know what you're asking." "I know we can't hide," Lila said. "Not anymore." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. "We'll go together." Old Nan looked between them, her face grim. "Then take the book, and pray you're stronger than the last keeper." She handed Lila the journal, its pages heavy with secrets. The fog closed in, the shadows circling. The tower's chime rang out, a single bong that shook the earth. Lila's heart raced, but she held the key tight, its stars guiding her back to the tower. The fog swirled, the shadows whispered, and Eldermoor waited, caught between worlds. Chapter 3. The Keeper's Journal. Lila's fingers tightened around the key, its starry etchings biting into her palm. The fog curled around her, Thom, and Old Nan, thick as a living thing, swallowing Eldermoor's square. The clocktower's chime still echoed in her chest, a deep bong that felt like it shook her bones. Shadows moved in the mist, their tall, thin shapes flickering, their starry eyes watching from the haze. The village was gone, houses, paths, lights all lost in the white. Old Nan's face was grim, her grey scarf loose around her neck. She held the leather journal, her hands trembling as she pressed it into Lila's arms. "This is all we have," she said, her voice low. "Your great-grandfather's words. Read them, learn fast." Lila nodded, her throat tight. The book felt heavier than it should, its pages yellowed and rough. Thom stood close, his lantern dead, its glass cold. "What do we do now?" he asked, his eyes darting to the shadows. They didn't move closer, but their presence pressed against Lila's skin, cold and heavy, like a storm waiting to break. "We go back to the tower," Lila said, her voice steadier than she felt. "The door's open. We need to close it." Old Nan's eyes widened. "You don't know what's behind that door, girl. Nobody does." "But we can't stay here," Lila said. She pointed to the fog, where the shadow's starry eyes glinted. "They're waiting. They'll come for us if we don't move." Thom nodded, his jaw tight. "She's right, Nan. The key did something. Maybe it can undo it." Old Nan muttered something under her breath, like a prayer or a curse. Then, "Go, but don't touch that key again until you know what it wants." Lila slipped the key into her coat pocket, next to the journal. The fog swirled, the hum from the tower growing louder, a low pulse in the air. The shadows shifted, their shapes stretching, like they were listening. Lila grabbed Thom's hand, pulling him toward the tower's dark shape, barely visible through the mist. Old Nan followed, her steps slow but steady, her eyes sharp. The ground was soft again, sinking under their boots, like the earth was rotting. The iron smell was stronger, mixed with that sour tang Lila couldn't place. The tower loomed closer, its black stones slick with damp, the carvings of eyes and spirals twisting in the faint light. The door was open, a black gap that seemed to pull at them, like a tide dragging them in. Inside, the air was cold, thick with dust and that metallic stench. The spiral staircase creaked, its steps uneven, like they'd been carved by unsteady hands. Lila led the way, the journal clutched to her chest, Thom's hand on her shoulder, Old Nan behind them. The hum was louder here, coming from the gears above, a sound that crawled into Lila's head and stayed there at the top. The gear room was darker than before, the shadows thicker, pooling in the corners like spilled ink. The gears were still, but their hum filled the air, vibrating in Lila's teeth. The starry door glowed faintly on the wall, its outline cracked, like a mirror about to shatter. Beyond it, Lila glimpsed those wrong stars against pinning, endless, pulling at her mind. She opened the journal, her hands shaking. The pages were filled with her great-grandfather's tight, slanted writing, sketches of the tower, the gears, the key. She found a page titled "The Watchers." It showed a shadow, tall and thin, with starry eyes. Below it, the words, "They guard the door, they see through time. Blood calls them, blood binds them." "Blood again," Lila whispered, her stomach twisting. "What does it mean?" Old Nan leaned over, her finger tracing the page. "Your great-grandfather was the last keeper. He wrote this to warn us. The tower's a door to another place, a place we don't belong. The Watchers keep it shut, but they're not kind. They want something for their work." Thom frowned, his voice low. "Blood, like a sacrifice." Old Nan's face darkened. Maybe, he never said. He only said the key was dangerous. It opens, but it also wakes. Lila flipped to another page, finding a sketch of the starry door. Words were scratched beneath it. The door leads to the void. The key locks it, but only with the right heart. Choose wrong, and the watchers take all. She read it aloud, her voice shaking. What's the right heart? Old Nan shook her head. I don't know. He died before he could explain. The tower took him. Lila's chest tightened. She looked at the door, its glow brighter now, the cracks wider. The hum grew, the gears twitching, like they were waking up. A shadow moved in the corner, tall and thin, its starry eyes fixed on her. She stepped back, bumping into Thom. They're here, Thom said, his voice barely a whisper. More shadows appeared, circling the room, their shapes blurry but sharp at the edges, like cut paper. They didn't move closer, but their eyes burned, endless and cold. Lila's hand went to the key in her pocket. It was warm now, almost hot, its stars pulsing like a heartbeat. We need to try the key again, she said. It's our only chance. Old Nan grabbed her arm, her grip tight. Not yet. You don't know what you're opening. But we can't wait, Lila said, pulling free. The shadows are already here. The door's already cracked. We have to do something. Thom nodded, his eyes on the shadows. She's right. We can't just stand here. Old Nan's lips pressed thin, but she didn't argue. Then read the book. Find the right way. Lila flipped through the journal, her heart racing. The pages were a mess of notes and drawings, some clear, some smudged, like her great-grandfather wrote in a hurry. She found a page with a list, rules for the keeper. It read, 1. Never touch the key without intent. 2. Never chime the tower at night. 3. Blood must be given, not taken. 4. The watchers see your heart. Intent, Lila said, looking at Thom. What's that mean? Thom shrugged, his face pale. Maybe you have to mean it, like know what you're doing. Old Nan's voice was sharp. It means you can't just guess. The key knows you. It feels what you feel. Lila's hand shook as she held the key. It was heavier now, like it was pulling her toward the door. The shadows moved closer, their starry eyes brighter, their shapes stretching like they were growing. The hum was a roar now, shaking the floor, making the gears tremble. She stepped to the door, the key burning in her hand. The starry lock glowed. Waiting. What if I'm wrong? She whispered. Thom stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder. You're not. You're trying to save us. Old Nan stayed back, her eyes wide. Be sure, Lila, be sure. Lila took a breath, her heart pounding. She pressed the key to the lock, its stars clicking into place. The door pulsed, the cracks glowing red, like blood in the light. The hum stopped, and silence fell, heavy and wrong. The shadows froze, their eyes blazing. A voice came not from the gears but from the door itself, low and deep, like stones grinding. You choose, it said. Open or close, give or take. Lila's hand shook, the key stuck in the lock. Close, she said, her voice breaking. I want to close it. The door trembled, the cracks sealing, the red glow fading. But the shadows screamed, a sound like glass shattering, tearing at Lila's ears. They rushed forward, their starry eyes burning, their shapes twisting into claws and teeth. Lila yanked the key free, stumbling back. Thom pulled her away, and Old Nan grabbed her arm, dragging them toward the stairs. Run! Old Nan shouted. The tower shook, the gears spinning wild, the chimes ringing 1, 2, 3, each louder than the last. The shadows chased them, their screams echoing, their claws scraping the walls. Lila clutched the key and journal, her legs burning as they ran down the stairs. The tower groaned, like it was breaking apart. Outside, the fog was a storm, swirling and thick. The shadows, screams following. The village was still gone, the ground soft and sinking. Lila's breath came in gasps, her heart racing. What did I do? She asked, her voice shaking. Old Nan's face was grim. You tried to close it, but the watchers don't want it closed. Thom looked back, his eyes wide. They're still coming. The shadows poured from the tower, their shapes filling the fog, their starry eyes everywhere. Lila's hand tightened on the key, its heat spreading through her. The journal's words flashed in her mind. Blood must be given, not taken. She didn't know what it meant, but it felt like the answer. We need to hide, Old Nan said, pulling them toward a cluster of trees, their branches twisted and bare. The fog was thinner here, the ground harder, but the shadows were close, their screams louder. Lila opened the journal, flipping to a page she hadn't seen before. It showed a circle of stones, hidden in the woods, with words. The circle holds them, blood seals it. There's a place, she said, showing Old Nan, a circle that can stop them. Old Nan's eyes narrowed. The old stones, by the stream. I thought they were just ruins. Where? Thom asked, his voice urgent. The shadows were closer, their shapes filling the fog, their eyes like stars in a dead sky. Old Nan pointed. West, past the oak. Hurry. They ran, the fog swirling, the shadows' screams shaking the air. The key burned in Lila's pocket, the journal heavy in her arms. The trees loomed, their branches clawing at the sky. The stream appeared, its water black and still, and beyond it, a circle of stones, tall and crooked, carved with the same eyes and spirals as the tower. Lila stepped into the circle, the air changing, like a weight lifting. The shadows stopped at the edge, their screams fading, their starry eyes dimming. It's working, she said, her voice shaking. Old Nan nodded, her face pale. The circle's old, older than the tower. It's a cage for them. Thom looked at the stones, his hands shaking. But they're still there. What now? Lila opened the journal, finding the page again. Blood seals it. She looked at Old Nan, her stomach twisting. It says blood. What does it mean? Old Nan's lips pressed thin. Your great-grandfather tried to seal the door. He gave his blood. It wasn't enough. Lila's heart sank. He died for it. Old Nan nodded. He thought he could close it, but the watchers wanted more. Thom's voice was sharp. More what? More blood. Old Nan didn't answer, her eyes on the shadows. They pressed against the circle, their shapes twisting, like they were trying to break through. The key in Lila's pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm. She pulled it out, its stars glowing red, like the cracks in the door. We need to try, Lila said. The circle, the key, the blood, it's all connected. Old Nan grabbed her hand, her grip tight. You don't know what you're giving. I know we can't wait, Lila said, pulling free. She stepped to the center of the circle, where a flat stone lay, carved with a star. The journal's words burned in her mind. Blood must be given, not taken. She pressed her thumb to the key's edge, sharp enough to cut. A drop of blood welled, falling onto the stone. The air shook, the hum returning, low and deep. The shadows screamed, their starry eyes blazing, then dimming. The fog thinned, the village flickering into view houses, paths, lights, all faint, like a dream waking up. The stones glowed, their carvings pulsing, holding the shadows back. Lila's hand stung, but she felt lighter, like the key was quieter in her palm. It's working, she said, her voice trembling. Thom's eyes were wide. The village it's back. Old Nan's face was grim. For now, blood holds them, but not forever. The shadows retreated, their shapes fading into the fog, their screams gone. The tower's hum faded, the chimes silent. Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering in the wind. What do we do next? Thom asked, his voice low. Lila looked at Old Nan, then at the tower, its shape sharp in the thinning fog. We find the rest of the answers. In the book, in the tower. We can't stop now. Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she nodded. Then, keep the key close, and don't bleed again unless you're sure. The fog lifted, the village solid again, but Lila felt the shadows' eyes, even if she couldn't see them. The key was warm in her hand, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower waited, its door open, its chimes silent for now. Chapter 4. Shadows in the mist. Lila's thumb stung where the key had cut her. A tiny drop of blood that felt heavier than it should. The stone circle's glow faded behind her. Thom and Old Nan, as they stood in Eldermoor's foggy heart, the village half hidden in swirling white. The clock tower loomed in the distance, its black stones slick, its last chimer deep, rattling bong still vibrating in Lila's chest. The black key in her pocket was warm, its starry etchings pulsing faintly, like a heartbeat. The journal, in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across worn pages, felt alive, urging her forward. The fog was thick, curling like fingers, and the shadows' starry eyes watched from the haze, held back by the circle but not gone. Old Nan's scarf hung loose, her face pale under the dim light. "We can't stay here," she said, her voice sharp. "The stones are old. They won't hold the watchers forever." Lila nodded, her throat tight. "We need to know more. The book talks about blood, but it's not clear. We need to find out what the keepers did wrong." Thom clutched his cracked lantern. "It's glass dark. The shadows are still out there," he said, squinting into the fog. "Where do we go?" Old Nan's eyes flicked to the journal. "The graveyard. The keeper's stones are there. They might have answers. The book doesn't." Lila's stomach twisted, but she held the journal tighter. "Let's go. Before the shadows break through." They moved quickly, the fog pressing close, cold and damp against their skin. The path to the graveyard wound past the stream, its water black and still, like it was holding its breath. The air smelled of iron and something sour, a stench that clung to Lila's nose. Her boots sank into the soft ground, each step harder, like the earth was pulling her down. The hum from the tower was faint but growing, a low pulse that matched her racing heart. Thom led the way, his useless lantern swinging in his hand. Old Nan kept close, her steps quick despite her age, muttering under her breath like she was praying. Lila clutched the journal, its pages crinkling as she walked. The shadows flickered in the fog, their tall, thin shapes gliding just out of sight, their starry eyes glinting like cold stars. They didn't come closer, but their presence was heavy, like a weight on her chest. The graveyard appeared through the mist, a cluster of crooked stones surrounded by bare, twisted trees. The graves were old, their names faded, but some stood, taller, carved with the same eyes and spirals as the tower and the stone circle. Lila's skin prickled. "These are the keeper's stones," she said, her voice low. Old Nan nodded, her eyes scanning the fog. "They were buried here to watch the tower, even after death. Your great-grandfather's stone is over there." She pointed to a tall slab, its carvings sharper than the others, glowing faintly under the mist. Lila knelt by the stone, brushing dirt from its surface. The name Lila Wren was etched deep, below a spiral with an eye at its center. Words were carved beneath. "Keeper of the door." He gave, but not enough. Her heart sank. "What didn't he give?" she asked, looking at Old Nan. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "His heart. The book says the key needs a heart to close the door. He tried, but the watchers took him instead." Thom crouched beside Lila, his hand on the stone. "So we need to find the right heart. What does that even mean?" Lila opened the journal, her hands trembling. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the door and her great-grandfather's tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled "The Watchers." It read, "They guard the door. They see through time. Blood calls them. Blood binds them." Another line caught her eye. "The graveyard holds their names, but the tower holds their truth." "Truth," Lila whispered, her stomach twisting. "What truth?" Old Nan leaned over, her finger tracing the page. "The keepers made a pact, long ago. They tied their blood to the tower to keep the door shut. But each time it opens, the watchers grow stronger. Your great-grandfather was the last to try." Thom frowned, his voice low. "Try what? To close it, or to fight them?" Old Nan's eyes darkened. "Both. He used the key, like you. He gave blood, like you. But the watchers wanted more." Lila's hand went to the key in her pocket. It was hot now, almost burning, its stars pulsing like a warning. "More what?" she asked, her voice shaking. Old Nan didn't answer. The fog thickened, the hum growing louder, coming from the tower. A shadow moved closer, its starry eyes blazing, its shape tall and thin, like a stretched figure in a nightmare. Lila stepped back, her heart pounding. "They're here," she said. Thom stood, his lantern raised like a weapon. "Stay back," he shouted, but the shadow didn't move. More appeared, circling the graveyard, their eyes glowing through the fog. They didn't cross the stones, but their hum was a growl now, shaking the ground. Lila flipped through the journal, her hands sweaty. She found a page with a sketch of the graveyard, the keeper's stones drawn in sharp lines. Words were scrawled beneath. "The stones speak to those who listen. Blood opens their truth." She read it aloud, her voice trembling. "What does that mean?" Old Nan's eyes widened. "The stones, they're not just graves, they're seals, like the circle. Blood wakes them." Thom's face paled. "More blood." "Lila already gave some." "Not enough," Old Nan said, her voice sharp. "The keeper's blood is tied to the tower. It needs more to speak." Lila's thumb stung, the cut still fresh. She looked at the stone, its spiral eye staring back. "What kind of truth?" she asked. "Will it tell us how to close the door?" Old Nan nodded, slow and grim. "Maybe, but it's a risk. The watchers are watching." The hum grew louder, the shadows pressing closer, their starry eyes like holes in the sky. Lila's heart raced, but she couldn't stop now. She pressed her thumb to the key's edge again, harder this time, letting a drop of blood fall onto Lila Wren's stone. The air shook, the hum turning to a scream. The stone's carvings glowed, bright and red, like the cracks in the tower's door. A voice came, not from the shadows but from the stone itself, low and rough, like gravel. "You call us," it said. "You wake us." Lila stumbled back, her hand burning. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes blazing brighter. The fog swirled, and the graveyard changestones shifted. The ground rippled, like water under a storm. Thom grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "What's happening?" Old Nan's face was pale, her eyes wide. "You woke the keepers, they're speaking." The stone glowed brighter, its spiral spinning like it was alive. The voice came again, stronger now. "The door is open. The watchers walk. Blood binds, but blood breaks. Choose your heart." Lila's chest tightened. "Choose what? How do we close it?" The stone's glow pulsed, the voice fading. "Find the hour that never was. Bind it with the key. Pay the price." The shadows rushed forward, their screams tearing at Lila's ears. Thom yanked her back, and Old Nan pushed them toward the path. "Run," she shouted. "The stones won't hold them now." They bolted, the fog swirling, the shadows chasing. The graveyard shook, stones cracking, their glow fading. Lila clutched the journal and key, her legs burning as they ran toward the stream. The hum was a roar now, the tower's chime ringing 2, 3 chpong louder, shaking the earth. The stream appeared, its black water rippling like something moved beneath. Lila stopped, panting, her hand on the key. "The hour that never was," she said, her voice shaking. "What's that mean?" Thom looked back, the shadows closing in. "We need to get to the tower. It's the only place the book talks about." Old Nan's face was grim. "The hour that never was is when the tower chimes at no time. It breaks the world. That's when the door opens widest." Lila's mind raced, the journal's words looping. "Blood binds, but blood breaks." Her thumb stung, the key hot in her pocket. "Then we need to find that hour." Stop the chimes. The shadows were closer, their starry eyes everywhere, their shapes filling the fog. Lila ran, Thom and Old Nan beside her, the tower's shape sharp through the mist. The door was open, a black gap waiting. Inside, the air was cold, thick with that sour, metallic smell. The spiral staircase creaked, its steps groaning under their weight. At the top, the gear room was darker, the shadows thicker, pooling like ink. The starry door glowed, its cracks wider, showing glimpses of that wrong, spinning void. The gears hummed, twitching, like they were alive. Lila opened the journal, finding the page about the hour. It read, "When the tower chimes at no hour, the world bends. The key can bind it, but the heart must choose." "What's the heart?" Lila asked, her voice breaking. "Why does it keep saying that?" Old Nan's eyes were hard. "The heart is you. The keeper, the key knows you, your will, your fear. You have to mean it." The shadows moved closer, their starry eyes blazing. Thom stood by the door, his lantern raised, useless but defiant. "They're coming," he said, his voice tight. Lila's hand shook as she held the key. It was burning now, its stars glowing red. She stepped to the door, its lock pulsing, waiting. "What if I choose wrong?" she whispered. Old Nan grabbed her shoulder, her grip tight. "You won't. You're a Wren. The tower chose you." The gears spun, the hum a scream now, shaking. The tower. The shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the walls. Lila pressed the key to the lock, her heart pounding. "Close the door," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Bind the hour." The door pulsed, the cracks sealing, the red glow fading. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The gears stopped, the hum gone. Silence fell, heavy and wrong. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the lock. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. Did it work? Old Nan's eyes were on the door, its glow gone, its cracks faint. "For now," she said, "but the hour's still coming." The watchers aren't done. Lila's chest heaved, the key heavy in her hand. The journal's words burned in her mind. The heart must choose. She didn't know what she'd chosen, but the shadows were quieter, the fog thinner. The village flickered into view outside, its houses solid again. But the air still smelled of iron. "We need to keep going," Lila said, her voice firm. "The book's got more. We'll find the hour that never was." Old Nan nodded, her face tired. "Then keep the key close, and don't bleed again unless you're sure." The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, even if they were gone. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The fog lifted, but the shadows waited, and the hour was coming. Chapter 5. The hour that never was. Lila's hand shook as she clutched the black key, its starry etchings warm and sharp against her skin. The clock tower's gear room was silent, the air thick with dust, and the sour, metallic temps that clung to her throat. The starry door on the wall was dim, its cracks sealed for now, but the memory of its spinning, wrong stars burned in her mind. The journal lay open in her other hand, her great-grandfather's words looping. The heart must choose. Thom stood beside her, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale in the faint glow from the tower's high windows. Old Nan leaned against a gear, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but tired. The fog outside had thinned, letting Eldermoor's crooked houses in dim lamplights flicker into view. But the village felt wrong, like a painting smudged at the edges. The shadows were gone, their starry eyes faded, but Lila felt them lingering, waiting in the mist. The tower's last chimer, deep bone rattling bong still, echoed in her chest, and the words from the graveyard stone rang in her head. "Find the hour that never was. Bind it with the key. Pay the price." "What's the hour that never was?" Lila asked, her voice low, almost swallowed by the tower's heavy air. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "It's when the tower chimes at no time, when the world bends. Your great-grandfather wrote about it. Said it's when the door opens widest." Thom frowned, his hand tight on the lantern. "So we need to stop the chimes before that hour comes." Lila flipped through the journal, her thumb still stinging from the blood she'd given in the graveyard. The pages were heavy with stars, the door and tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled "The Hour That Never Was." It read, "When the tower chimes at no hour, time breaks. The watchers walk free. The key can bind it, but the heart must be true. Choose wrong, and the void takes all." "Choose wrong," Lila whispered, her stomach twisting. "Choose what?" Old Nan's eyes darkened. "The heart, yours. The key knows your will, your fear. It's why the tower chose you." Lila's chest tightened. She looked at the key, its stars glinting, faintly, like they were watching her. "But I tried to close the door. It worked, didn't it?" "For now," Old Nan said, her voice grim. "The watchers are quiet, but they're not gone. The hour's coming." Thom paced, his boots echoing on the stone floor. "So we find this hour. Stop the chimes." How? Lila scanned the journal, her heart racing. A sketch showed the tower's clock face, its hands twisted, pointing nowhere. Words beneath it read, "The hour is not on the clock, it is in the stars. Find the empty sky, and bind it with blood." She read it aloud, her voice shaking. "The empty sky. What's that?" Old Nan's face paled. "The sky above Eldermoor. Sometimes, at night, a patch goes dark, no stars, no light. Your great-grandfather saw it. Said it was where the watches come from." Lila's skin prickled. She remembered the starry void behind the door, endless and wrong, pulling at her mind. "So we need to find that patch, and do what?" Old Nan pointed to the journal. "Bind it, with the key, with blood, but it's dangerous. The watchers will fight." The tower shook, a low hum starting, faint but growing, like a heartbeat in the walls. Lila's hand tightened on the key, its heat spreading up her arm. "We can't wait," she said. "The shadows are coming back. I feel them." Thom nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we go outside, look for the empty sky." "Now." Old Nan grabbed Lila's arm, her grip strong. "Be careful, girl. The hour that never was isn't just a time. It's a place, a crack in the world." Lila pulled free, her heart pounding. "We have to try." For the village. They hurried down the spiral staircase, the steps creaking, the air colder with each step. Outside, the fog was thin but clinging, curling around their ankles like smoke. The village was backhouses, paths, lamplights, but it felt hollow, like a shell left behind. The sky above was dark, clouds heavy, but a patch near the horizon was blacker, a hole where no stars shone. "There," Lila said, pointing. "That's it, the empty sky." Thom squinted, his face pale. "It's wrong, like it's watching us." Old Nan's eyes narrowed. "It is. That's where the door leads, where the watchers wait." The hum grew louder, coming from the tower behind them. Lila's pocket burned, the key pulsing like it was alive. She pulled it out, its stars glowing red, bright against the dark. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Old Nan opened the journal, flipping to a page. With a sketch of the key and a circle of stars, words read, "Stand where the empty sky falls. Hold the key to the void. Give what it asks. You need to face it," Old Nan said. "Point the key at that patch. Say you bind it." Thom stepped closer, his hand on Lila's shoulder. "You sure about this?" "No," Lila said, her throat dry. "But we're out of time." The fog swirled, the hum turning to a growl. Shadows appeared, tall and thin, their starry eyes blazing through the mist. They didn't move closer, but their presence was heavy, like stones on Lila's chest. She stepped forward, away from the tower, toward the empty sky. The village faded, the fog thickening, the shadows circling. Lila raised the key, its stars burning her hand. "I bind the hour," she said, her voice shaking but loud. I closed the door. The air shook, the hum, a scream now, tearing at her ears. The empty sky pulsed, its black patch growing, like a mouth opening. The shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the ground, their starry eyes blazing. Lila's heart pounded, but she held the key steady, its glow cutting through the fog. A voice came not from the tower but from the sky itself, deep and rough, like breaking stone. "You choose," it said. "Give or take, bind or break." Lila's hand trembled, the key burning hotter. "Bind," she said, her voice breaking. "I bind it." The empty sky twisted, stars appearing not the village's stars, but the wrong ones, spinning in a void. The shadows screamed, their shapes stretching, their eyes dimming. The key glowed brighter, its stars pulsing red, then white, then blinding. Lila's arm shook, her knees weak, but she held on. The journal's words in her mind. The heart must be true. The ground shook, the fog swirling like a storm. The shadows clawed at the air, their screams fading. The empty sky shrank, its black patch closing, the wrong stars gone. The hum stopped, the air still. Lila fell to her knees, the key heavy in her hand, its glow fading. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. "The sky is normal." Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You bound the hour. For now." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging where the key had cut her. "For now?" she asked, her voice weak. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The watchers are quiet, but the door's still there. The hour will come again." Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay in the dirt, its pages open to the sketch of the empty sky. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the graveyard's words. It said, "There's a price." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather paid it. His blood, his heart. The watchers took him." Thom's eyes widened. "You mean Lila has to know," Old Nan said, sharp. "Not yet. But the key knows her now. It'll ask again." The village was back, its houses solid, its lamplights glowing faintly, but the air still smelled of iron, the fog lingering at the edges. Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. "We need to keep looking," she said. "The books got more. We find a way to close the door for good." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. "Then keep moving. The watchers are watching." The tower was silent, its chime gone, but Lila felt the shadows' eyes, even if she couldn't see them. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The fog lifted, but the hour that never was coming, and the watchers were waiting. Chapter 6. The iron spiral. Lila's hand trembled around the black key, its starry etchings, warm and sharp, like they were alive. The fog around Eldermoor had lifted just enough to show the village's crooked houses and dim lamplights, but the air was heavy, thick with the iron tang of the last chime. A deep, bone-shaking bong still echoed in her chest, and the journal in her arms, Her great-grandfather's words, scrawled across yellowed pages, felt heavier than ever. Thom stood close, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale under the dark sky. Old Nan's scarf hung loose, her eyes sharp but tired, watching the tower's black shape in the distance. The shadows were quiet for now, their starry eyes gone, but Lila felt them lingering, like a cold breath on her neck. The empty sky she'd faced, the black patch where no stars shone, was sealed. But the journal's words burned in her mind. The hour will come again. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her back to the tower. "We can't stop," Lila said, her voice shaky but firm. "The door's still open. The book's got more answers." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "You bound the hour, girl. That's more than most keepers did. But the watchers aren't done. They'll want more." Thom kicked a stone, his jaw tight. "More what?" "Blood. Lila's already given that." Old Nan's eyes darkened. "Blood calls them. Something else binds them. Your great-grandfather never found it." Lila opened the journal, her hands sweaty. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the Dorant tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled "The Iron Spiral." It showed the tower's staircase, its steps twisting like a snake, leading to a chamber below the gears. Words: "Read. The spiral hides the heart of the tower. The key opens its truth, but the watchers guard it." "Blood lights the way. The spiral?" Lila asked, showing Old Nan the sketch. "There's something under the tower." Old Nan nodded, slow and grim. "Your great-grandfather wrote about a chamber, said it was where the tower's power lives. He never reached it." The watchers stopped him. Thom's eyes widened. "So we go down, instead of up?" Lila's stomach twisted. The tower's staircase was bad enough, creaky, dark, and cold. Going below sounded worse, like stepping into a grave. But the key was warm, pulling her, and the journal's words were clear. "We have to," she said. "If the chamber's got answers, we need them." Old Nan grabbed her arm, her grip tight. "It's not just a room, girl. It's the tower's heart. The watchers will be there." The hum started again, faint but growing, a pulse in the ground. Lila's pocket burned, the key's stars glowing through her coat. "They're already coming," she said, her voice low. "We don't have a choice." Thom nodded, his face pale but set. "Let's do it. Together." They hurried to the tower, the fog swirling, the village fading behind them. The black stones gleamed wet, the carvings of eyes and spirals sharper in the dim light. The door was open, a dark gap that seemed to breathe. Inside, the air was cold, thick with dust, and that sour, metallic smell. The spiral staircase loomed, its steps uneven, creaking under their boots. Lila led the way, the journal clutched to her chest, the key burning in her pocket. Thom followed, his lantern raised, though its light was gone. Old Nan was last, her steps slow but steady, muttering under her breath. The hum grew louder, vibrating in the walls, matching the keys. Pulse dot at the gear room. Lila stopped, her eyes on the staircase. It didn't just go up, it went down, into a dark shaft she hadn't noticed before. The journal's sketch was clear. The iron spiral led below, to a chamber hidden in the tower's roots. "There," she said, pointing to the dark. Thom squinted, his face pale. "That looks wrong, like it's not supposed to be there." Old Nan's voice was sharp. "It's always been there. The tower hides it until it wants to be found." Lila's heart raced, but she stepped onto the downward stairs, the iron cold under her boots. The air grew colder, the metallic smell, stronger, mixed with something new, something old, like earth left too long. The stairs creaked, each step echoing like a heartbeat. The hum was a growl now, shaking the walls, making dust fall. The staircase twisted, tighter and darker, the walls closing in. Lila's breath puffed in the cold, her hand tight on the key. Thom's boots echoed behind her, Old Nan's muttering faint but steady. The journal's words looped in her mind. "Blood lights the way." Her thumb stung, the cut from the graveyard, still fresh. The stairs ended at a stone door, carved with the same eyes and spirals as the tower. A starry lock glowed in its center, matching the key. Lila's hand shook as she pulled the key from her pocket. Its stars were bright, pulsing, red, like blood in the light. "This is it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The chamber." Thom's hand was on her shoulder, his voice low. "You sure about this?" "No," Lila said, her throat dry. "But we're here. Old Nan's eyes were wide, her face pale. "Be careful, girl. The watchers are close." Lila pressed the key to the lock, its stars clicking into place. The door pulsed, the carvings glowing, the hum a scream now, tearing at her ears. The stone slid open, revealing a chamber lit by a faint, red glow. The air was thick, heavy with that sour, metallic smell. And something else, something alive, like a pulse in the walls. Inside, the chamber was round, its walls carved with spirals and eyes, glowing faintly. At the center was a stone pedestal, etched with a star. Above it, a ball of light floated, red and pulsing, like a heart. The hum came from it, shaking the floor, making Lila's teeth ache. "What is that?" Thom asked, his voice barely a whisper. Old Nan's face was grim. "The tower's heart. It's what keeps the door alive." Lila stepped closer, the key burning in her hand. The journal's words echoed, "Blood lights the way." She opened it, finding the page about the spiral. It read, "The heart holds the tower's truth. The key can bind it, but the watchers will fight. Blood must be given, not taken." "Blood again," Lila said, her stomach twisting. "Why always blood?" Old Nan's voice was low. "The tower was built with blood, the keeper's blood. It's what ties it to our world." The hum grew louder, the red light pulsing faster. Shadows appeared, tall and thin, their starry eyes blazing from the walls. They didn't move, but their presence was heavy, like a hand squeezing Lila's chest. "They're here," she said, her voice shaking. Thom stepped closer, his lantern raised, useless but defiant. "What do we do?" Lila's hand went to her thumb, the cut still fresh. She pressed it to the key's edge, letting a drop of blood fall onto the pedestal's star. The red light flared, the hum a scream now, shaking the chamber. The shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the stone, their starry eyes burning. A voice came, not from the shadows but from the heart itself, deep and rough, like breaking earth. "You give," it said, "but it is not enough." Lila's heart pounded, her hand burning where the key touched her. "What do you want?" she shouted, her voice breaking. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes blazing brighter. The heart pulsed, its light filling the chamber, showing glimpses of that wrong, starry void. Lila's knees shook, but she held the key tight, pressing it to the pedestal. "Bind the heart," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. Close, the door, the light flared, blinding, the hum a roar. The shadows clawed at the air, their screams tearing at Lila's ears. The pedestal glowed, the star burning red, then white, then gone. The shadows froze, their eyes dimming, their shapes fading. The hum stopped, the chamber silent. Lila fell to her knees, the key heavy in her hand, its stars dull. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. "The heart's quiet." Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You bound it. For now." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging. "For now?" she asked it, voice weak. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The heart's tied to the door. You slowed it, but the watchers are still there." Lila looked at the pedestal, its star dark now, like it was sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the graveyard's words. "It keeps saying there's a price." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather paid it. His blood, his life. The watchers took him." Thom's eyes widened. "Lila's not doing that." Old Nan's voice was sharp. "She might not have a choice. The key chose her." Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The chamber was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. "We need to keep going," she said. "The book's got more. We'll find a way to close the door for good." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. "Then go back up. The tower's not done with you." They climbed the iron spiral, the stairs creaking, the air lighter, but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the empty patch gone for now. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the next chime. Chapter 7. Whispers from the gears. Lila's hand burned where the key had touched her, its starry etchings leaving a faint sting on her skin. The chamber beneath the clock tower was silent now, the red glow of the tower's heart gone, but the air was heavy, thick with the sour, metallic smell that clung to her throat. the journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt like a weight pulling her down. Thom stood beside her, his cracked lantern, useless, his face pale in the dim light filtering through the chamber's stone walls. Old Nan leaned against the pedestal, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but weary, watching the starry door's faint outline in the gear room above. The shadows were quiet, their starry eyes gone for now, but Lila felt them lingering, like a cold shadow on her heart. The tower's last chime, a deep, rattling bong still echoed in her chest, and the journal's words burned in her mind. The heart must be true. The key in her pocket was warm, its stars pulsing faintly, urging her back to the gears. We slowed it, Lila said, her voice shaky but firm. But the door's still open. We need to find the next step. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. You bound the tower's heart, girl. That's more than your great-grandfather did. But the Watchers are waiting. They always do. Thom wiped sweat from his forehead, his jaw tight. Waiting for what? More blood. Lila's given enough. Old Nan's eyes darkened. Blood calls. Them something else binds them. The journal might say, what? Lila opened the book, her hands trembling. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the door and tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled Whispers from the Gears. It showed the gear room above, the massive iron wheels drawn with sharp lines, their teeth marked with tiny stars. Words read, the gears speak to the keeper, they hold the tower's will. Blood wakes them, but the heart must listen. The gears? Lila asked, showing Old Nan the sketch. They talk. Old Nan nodded, slow and grim. Your great-grandfather heard them, said they whispered secret truths about the door, but the Watchers guard them. They don't share easy. Thom's eyes widened. So we go back up to the gears. Lila's stomach twisted. The gear room was bad enough, dark, cold, and heavy with the Watcher's presence, but the key was warm, pulling her, and the journal's words were clear. We have to, she said. If the gears know how to close the door, we need to hear them. Old Nan grabbed her arm, her grip tight. The gears aren't kind, girl. They'll ask for something. They always do. The hum started again, faint but growing, a pulse in the walls. Lila's pocket burned, the key's stars glowing through her coat. They're waking, she said, her voice low. We don't have time to wait. Thom nodded, his face pale but set. Let's do it. Together, they climbed the iron spiral, the stairs creaking, the air colder with each step. The metallic smell grew stronger, mixed with that sour temps that made Lila's nose burn. The gear room was dark, the massive wheels still, but their hum vibrated in her chest like a song she couldn't shake. The starry door glowed faintly on the wall, its cracks sealed but pulsing, like it was waiting. Lila opened the journal, finding the page about the gears. It says blood wakes them, she said, her thumb stinging from the cut in the graveyard. But the heart must listen. What does that mean? Old Nan's voice was low. The gears are the tower's voice. They speak to the keeper's heart's your heart. You have to be ready to hear. Thom stepped to the largest gear, its iron teeth carved with tiny stars. How do we make them talk? Lila's hand went to the key in her pocket. It was hot now, almost burning, its stars glowing red. She pulled it out, its light cutting through the dark. The book says blood, she said, her voice trembling, like in the chamber. Old Nan's eyes widened. Be careful, girl. The gears aren't like the stones. They're alive. The hum grew louder, the gears twitching, like they were waking. Shadows flickered in the corners, tall and thin, their starry eyes glinting. Lila's heart raced, but she stepped to the gear, the key burning in her hand. She pressed her thumb to its edge, letting a drop of blood fall onto the starry carving. The gear shook, its hum a low growl, vibrating in her bones. A voice came, not from the shadows, but from the gear itself, deep and rough, like iron scraping stone. You wake us, it said. You call us. Lila stumbled back, her hands stinging. The shadows moved closer, their eyes blazing, their shapes stretching, like they were growing. The gear spun, slow at first, then faster, its stars glowing red, then white, then blinding. The other gears joined, their hum a scream, shaking the tower. Thom grabbed her arm, his face pale. What's happening? Old Nan's voice was sharp. You woke them. Now listen. The voice came again, louder, filling the room. The door is open. The hour is near. The heart must choose bind or break. Lila's chest tightened. Choose what? She shouted, her voice breaking. How do we close the door? The gears spun faster, their light blinding, showing glimpses of the starry void-drawn stars, spinning in a black sky. The shadows screamed, their claws scraping the walls, their eyes burning. The voice spoke again, slow and heavy. The heart binds the door, blood lights the way. Give what? You are. Lila's hand shook, the key burning hotter. Give what I am, she whispered. What does that mean? Old Nan's face was grim. Your great-grandfather heard the same. He gave his blood, his life. It wasn't enough. Thom's eyes widened. Lila's not dying for this. The gears screamed, the shadows rushing. Forward, their claws reaching. Lila pressed the key to the gear, its stars clicking into a carved slot. Bind the door, she shouted, her voice steady despite her fear. Close it. The gears flared, the light blinding, the hum a roar. The shadows froze, their eyes dimming, their shapes fading. The starry door pulsed, its cracks sealing tighter, its glow fading. The gears slowed, the hum quieting, the air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the gear. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. You did it, he said, his voice shaky. The shadows stopped. Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. You bound the gears. For now. Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging. For now, she asked, her voice weak. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. The gears are the tower's voice, but the door's still there. The watchers are waiting. Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. What's the price? She asked, remembering the graveyard's words. It keeps saying there's a price. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. Your great-grandfather paid it. His blood, his heart. The watchers took him. Thom's voice was sharp. Lila's not doing that. Old Nan's eyes were hard. She might not have a choice. The key chose her. Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The gear room was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. We need to keep going, she said. The book's got more. We'll find a way to close the door for good. Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were tired, but she didn't argue. Then go back to the village. The book mentions a pact. Find it. They hurried down the stairs, the tower creaking, the air lighter but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the stars faint. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the next chime. Chapter 8. The Forgotten Pact. Lila's fingers ached around the black key, its starry etchings warm and sharp, like they were trying to speak. The gear room of the clock tower was quiet now, the massive iron wheels still, but the air was thick, with the sour metallic temps that clung to her throat. The journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt heavier than ever, pulling her towards secrets she wasn't sure she wanted. Thom stood beside her, his cracked lantern dangling uselessly, his face pale in the dim light from the tower's high windows. Old Nan leaned against the wall, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but heavy with worry, watching the starry doors. Faint outline, its cracks sealed but pulsing faintly. The shadows were gone. Their starry eyes faded, but Lila felt them waiting, like a cold breath on her skin. The tower's last chimer, deep bone-rattling bong still lingered in her chest, and the gear's words echoed in her mind. Give what you are. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her to keep moving. We slowed. Them, Lila said, her voice shaky but firm. But the door's still there. We need to find the pact. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. The pact's old girl, older than the village. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said, it's what tied the keepers to the tower. Thom wiped sweat from his forehead, his jaw tight. What kind of pact? And where do we find it? Lila opened the journal, her hands trembling. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the door end tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled The Forgotten Pact. It showed a circle of figures, their hands linked, standing around the tower. Words read, the pact was made in blood, to bind the door. The keepers swore to guard it, but the watchers swore to break it. Find the pact in the village's heart. The village's heart, Lila asked, showing Old Nan the sketch. Where's That, Old Nan's eyes narrowed. The square, the fountain. It's where the village was born, where the first keepers made their vow. Lila's stomach twisted. The square was where she'd first seen the shadow, tall and thin, gliding toward the tower. So we go there, to find what? Old Nan's voice was low. The pact's mark, a seal, like the stones. It holds the keeper's promise. The hum started again, faint but growing, a pulse in the floor. Lila's pocket burned, the key's stars glowing through her coat. "They're waking," she said, her voice low. "We need to hurry." Thom nodded, his face pale but set. "Let's go." To the square. They hurried down the spiral staircase, the steps creaking, the air colder with each step. The metallic smell grew stronger, mixed with that sour tang that made Lila's nose burn. Outside, the fog was thin, the village flickering into view-crooked houses, dim lamplights, but it felt wrong, like a memory half forgotten. The sky was dark, the stars faint, and the empty patch was gone. But Lila felt its weight, like it was watching. The square was quiet, the fountain dry, its stone cracked. The lamplights flickered, casting shadows that moved like they were alive. Lila clutched the journal, the key hot in her pocket. "Where's the seal?" she asked, scanning the ground. Old Nan knelt by the fountain, her fingers brushing the stone. "Here, look for a star, like the keys." Lila and Thom searched, their hands scraping the cold, rough stone. The hum grew louder, coming from the tower, a low growl that shook the air. Shadows flickered in the fog, their starry eyes glinting, staying just out of reach. Lila's heart raced, her thumb stinging from the cut in the graveyard. Thom said, pointing to a faint carving on the fountain's base, a star, etched deep, its lines glowing faintly, like the key's etchings. Lila pulled the key from her pocket, its stars pulsing red, matching the seal. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Old Nan's eyes were wide. "The pact needs blood, like the stones. A keeper's blood. Yours." Thom's face paled. "More blood. She's already given enough." Old Nan's voice was sharp. "The pact's broken. The watchers are free because the keepers failed. Blood can wake it." Lila's hand shook, the key burning. She pressed her thumb to its edge, letting a drop of blood fall onto the star. The fountain shook, the hum a scream now, tearing at her ears. The star glowed, red and bright, spreading light across the square. Shadows rushed forward, tall and thin, their starry eyes blazing, their claws scraping the stone. A voice came not from the shadows but from the fountain itself, deep and rough, like water over rocks. "The pact is called," it said. "The keepers swore, the watchers swore. Blood binds, blood breaks." Lila stumbled back, her hands stinging. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes burning brighter. The fountain's light flared, showing glimpses of figures, ghostly shapes, their hands linked, standing around the tower. "The keepers," Lila whispered, her heart pounding. Old Nan's face was grim. "You woke them. They'll show the pact." The figures moved, their shapes faint but clear, circling the fountain. One stepped forward, taller than the others, its face blurry but familiar. Lila Wren, her great-grandfather. His voice was soft, like a whisper in the wind. "You call us, keeper. The pact is yours to mend." Lila's throat tightened. "How? What do I do?" The figure's eyes glowed, like the key stars. "The pact was blood, given freely. The watchers broke it, but the keepers failed. Bind it with your heart." The shadows screamed louder, their claws reaching, their starry eyes blazing. The fountain's light pulsed, the figures fading, their voices echoing. "Bind it with your heart." The hum was a roar now, shaking the ground, making the lamplights flicker. Thom grabbed Lila's arm, his face pale. "What's that mean?" "Your heart." Lila's hand tightened on the key, its stars burning her skin. "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "But we can't stop." Old Nan's eyes were hard. "The pacts in the village records. The old hall, by the square. Find them." The shadows rushed closer, their claws scraping the fountain. Lila pressed the key to the star again, her voice steady despite her fear. "Bind the pact," she shouted. "Close the door." The light flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The fountain shook, the star glowing white, then dark. The figures vanished, the hum quieting, the air still. Lila's hand burned a key heavy, its stars dull. Thom caught her as she stumbled, his voice shaky. "You did it." The shadows stopped. Old Nan knelt beside the fountain, her face grim. You woke the pact, but it's not sealed. Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging. Not sealed? She asked, her voice weak. Old Nan nodded. The pact needs more. The records will say. What? Lila looked at the key. Its stars quiet now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. What's the price? She asked, remembering the gear's words. It keeps saying I have to give. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. Your great-grandfather gave his life. The Watchers took him. Thom's voice was sharp. Lila's not doing that. Old Nan's eyes were tired. The pact chooses. It always has. Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The square was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the fog lingering at the edges. We need to find the records, she said, in the old hall. Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together. Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. Then go. The Watchers are watching. They hurried across the square, the fog swirling, the shadows' eyes glinting in the distance. The old hall loomed, its wooden doors cracked, its windows dark. Inside, the air was stale, smelling of dust and old paper. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and scrolls. Their edges yellowed. Lila opened the journal, finding a page about the hall. It read, "The records hold the pact's words. Blood signed it, blood seals it." She scanned the shelves, her heart racing. "Look for anything about the keepers," she said. Thom and Old Nan searched, pulling scrolls and books, dust clouding the air. The hum was back, faint but growing, coming from the tower. Shadows flickered outside the windows, their starry eyes watching. Lila's pocket burned, the key pulsing. "Here," Thom said, holding a scroll, its wax seal stamped with a star. Lila broke it, unrolling the brittle paper. It was written in old ink. The words faded but clear. "We, the keepers, bind the door with our blood. The Watchers swear to guard it, but their hearts are false. If the pact breaks, the village falls." Lila's throat tightened. The Watchers broke it. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. They wanted more than the keepers gave. They always do. The hum grew louder, the hall shaking. Shadows pressed against the windows, their claws scraping the glass. Lila's hand tightened on the key, its stars glowing red. "What do we do?" she asked. Old Nan pointed to the scroll. "Sign it. With blood, like the keepers did." Lila's thumb stung, the cut still fresh. She pressed it to the key, letting a drop fall onto the scroll. The paper glowed, the words flaring red, then white. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The hum stopped, the hall still. Lila's hand burned, the key heavy. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice shaky. Old Nan's eyes were wide. "You signed it. The pact's awake." Thom's face was pale, but the shadows are still there. Lila looked at the scroll, its words glowing faintly. "It's not enough," she said. "We need to seal it. For good." Old Nan's voice was low. "The tower, it's where the pact was made. It's where it ends." The fog outside thickened, the shadows circling. The tower's chime rang out, a single bong that shook the ground. Lila clutched the key and journal, her heart pounding. The pact was awake, but the Watchers were waiting, and the door was still open. Chapter 9. Stars behind the fog. Lila's fingers trembled around the black key, its starry etchings hot against her skin, like they were whispering secrets she couldn't hear. The old hall's air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of old paper, but the iron tang from the clock tower clung to her throat. The journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt heavy, pulling her toward truths she wasn't sure she could face. Thom stood by the shelves, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale in the dim light from the hall's cracked windows. Old Nan clutched the glowing scroll, its starry seal pulsing faintly, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but tired. The shadows were quiet for now, their starry eyes gone, but Lila felt them waiting, like a cold hand on her heart. The tower's last chime, deep bone-shaking bong still, echoed in her chest, and the scroll's words burned in her mind. If the pact breaks, the village falls. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her back to the tower. "We woke the pact," Lila said, her voice shaky but firm. "But it's not sealed. We need to finish it." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "You signed it with blood, girl. That's more than most keepers did. But the Watchers are still there. They'll fight to keep the door open. Thom kicked a loose board, his jaw tight. So we go back to the tower. Again, Lila opened the journal, her hands sweaty. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the door end tight, slanted writing. She found a page titled Stars Behind the Fog. It showed the tower under a dark sky, a patch of blackness where no stars shone. Words read, "The stars behind the fog are not ours. They watch through the door. The key can bind them, but the heart must see." "The stars?" Lila asked, showing Old Nan the sketch. Like the empty sky, Old Nan's eyes widened, her face pale. "Your great-grandfather saw them, said they weren't stars at all, just eyes, watching from the void. The tower's door leads to them." Lila's stomach twisted. She remembered the starry void behind the door, endless and wrong, pulling at her mind. "So we need to face them, bind them with the key." Old Nan nodded, slow and grim. "The stars are the watchers home. You bound the pact, but they'll come through unless you seal the door." Thom's eyes darted to the windows, where the fog pressed close. "How?" "More blood." Old Nan's voice was low. "Blood calls them. Something else binds them." The journal might say what? The hum started again, faint but growing, a pulse in the floor. Lila's pocket burned, the key stars glowing through her coat. "They're waking," she said, her voice low. "We need to move." Thom nodded, his face pale but set. To the tower, where the pact was made. They hurried out of the hall, the fog swirling, the village flickering, crooked houses, dim lamplights, but it felt hollow, like a shell about to crack. The sky was dark, clouds heavy, but a patch near the horizon was blacker, a hole where no stars shone, just like the journal's sketch. Lila's heart raced, the key pulsing in her pocket. "There," she said, pointing to the black patch. "The stars behind the fog." Thom squinted, his face pale. "It's alive, like it's staring back." Old Nan's eyes narrowed. "It is. That's where the door leads, where the watchers wait." The tower loomed ahead, its black stones slick, the carvings of eyes and spirals sharper in the dim light. The door was open, a dark gap that seemed to breathe. Inside, the air was cold, thick with dust, and that sour, metallic smell. The spiral staircase creaked, its steps uneven. Leading up to the gear room, Lila led the way, the journal clutched to her chest, the key burning in her pocket. Thom followed, his lantern raised, though its light was gone. Old Nan was last, her steps slow but steady, muttering under her breath. The hum was louder here, vibrating in the walls, matching the key's pulse dot at the gear room. The massive iron wheels were still, but their hum shook Lila's teeth. The starry door glowed faintly, its cracks sealed but pulsing, like a heartbeat. Shadows flickered in the corners, their starry eyes glinting, staying just out of reach. Lila opened the journal, finding the page about the stars. "It says the heart must see," she said, her voice trembling. "What does that mean?" Old Nan's voice was low. "The watchers see through you, your fear, your will. You have to see them back, know them." Thom stepped to the door, his face pale. "How do we do that?" "Stare at the void." Lila's hand went to the key, its stars glowing red, almost burning. "The book says the key can bind them. Maybe I need to face the stars." Old Nan grabbed her arm, her grip tight. "Be careful, girl. The stars aren't just lights, they're alive. They'll try to take you." The hum grew louder, the gears twitching, like they were waking. Shadows moved closer, their starry eyes blazing, their shapes stretching, like they were growing. Lila's heart raced, but she stepped to the door, the key burning in her hand. She pressed it to the starry lock, its stars clicking into place. The door pulsed, the cracks glowing red, like blood in the light. The hum was a scream now, tearing at her ears. Shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the walls, their eyes burning. A voice came, not from the gears but from the door itself, deep and rough, like breaking stone. "You see us," it said. "Now we see you." Lila's knees shook, but she held the key steady, its glow cutting through the dark. The door's cracks widened, showing the starry void-wrong stars, spinning in a black sky, pulling at her mind. She saw shapes in the void, tall and thin, their starry eyes endless, watching her, knowing her. "Bind the stars," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Close the door." The light flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The door shook, its cracks sealing, the red glow fading. The gears spun, then stopped, the hum quieting, the air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the lock. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. "The stars are gone." Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You faced them. That's more than your great-grandfather did." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging from the old cut. "For now?" she asked, her voice weak. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The stars are bound, but the door's still there. The watchers are waiting." Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the pack's words. "It keeps saying I have to give." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather gave his life. The watchers took him." Thom's voice was sharp. "Lila's not doing that." Old Nan's eyes were tired. "The door chooses. It always has." Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The gear room was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. "We need to keep going," she said. "The book mentions a procession, something about the watchers moving." Old Nan's eyes widened. "The spectral procession. Your great-grandfather saw it, ghosts of the keepers, walking to the tower. It's in the book." Lila flipped through the journal, finding a page about the procession. It read, "The procession comes when the stars align. The keepers walk to bind the door, but the watchers lead them astray." "We need to find it," she said. "It might show us how to seal the pact." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. "Then go to the village edge. The procession starts there." They hurried down the stairs, the tower creaking, the air lighter but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the stars faint. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the next chime. Chapter 10. The spectral procession. Lila's fingers ached around the black key, its starry etchings warm and sharp, like they were trying to pull her somewhere dark. The fog around Eldermoor was thin now, barely hiding the village's crooked houses and flickering lamplights, but the air was thick with the iron tang of the clock tower. The journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words, scratched across worn pages, felt like a stone dragging her down. Thom walked beside her, his cracked lanterns swinging uselessly, his face pale under the dark sky. Old Nan followed her, scarf loose, her eyes sharp but heavy, watching the tower's black shape in the distance. The shadows were quiet, their starry eyes gone for now, but Lila felt them lingering, like a cold hand on her spine. The tower's last chime, a deep, bone-shaking bong still hummed in her chest, and the journal's words about the spectral procession echoed in her mind. The keepers walk to bind the door, but the watchers lead them astray. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her toward the village's edge. "We need to find the procession," Lila said, her voice shaky but steady. "The book says it's the keepers' ghosts. They might show us how to seal the pact." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "The procession's dangerous, girl. Your great-grandfather saw it once, said it led him to the tower, but the watchers twisted it." Thom's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the fog. "Twisted how? What do they do?" Old Nan's voice was low. "They pull you in, make you walk with them. If you follow too far, you don't come back." Lila's stomach twisted, but she clutched the journal tighter. "We don't have a choice. The door's still open. The watchers are waiting." Thom nodded, his face pale but set. "Then we go to the village edge." Together they moved quickly, the fog swirling around their ankles, the village quiet, except for the faint hum from the tower. The air smelled of iron, and that sour temps that made Lila's nose burn. Her boots sank into the soft ground, each step heavy, like the earth was trying to hold her. The key burned in her pocket, its stars glowing faintly through her coat. The village edge was a narrow path, lined with bare trees, their branches clawing at the sky. Beyond it, the fog thickened, hiding the fields and hills. The sky was dark, the stars faint, but a patch near the horizon was blacker, like the empty sky from before. Watching them, Lila's heart raced, the journal's words looping. "The procession comes when the stars align." "There," Old Nan said, pointing to the path's end, where the fog swirled like a curtain. "That's where they walk." Lila opened the journal, finding the page about the procession. It showed ghostly figures, their hands linked, walking toward the tower. Words read, "The procession binds the pact, but the watchers lead it to the void. The key can guide it, but the heart must stay true." She read it aloud, her voice trembling. "The heart again. What does it want?" Old Nan's eyes darkened. "Your will, girl. Your strength. The watchers will try to break you." The hum grew louder, a pulse in the ground, coming from the tower. Shadows flickered in the fog, their starry eyes glinting, staying just out of reach. Lila's pocket burned, the key pulsing like a heartbeat. She pulled it out, its stars glowing red, bright against the dark. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice shaky. Old Nan's voice was sharp. "Hold the key, face the procession, guide them to the tower, not the void." Thom stepped closer, his hand on her shoulder. "You sure about this?" "No," Lila said, her throat dry. "But we're running out of time." The fog parted, and figures appeared, ghostly shapes, faint and glowing, their faces blurry but familiar. Keepers, like the ones at the fountain, their hands linked, walking in a slow, silent line. One figure was taller, its shape like her great-grandfather, Lila Wren. His eyes glowed, like the key's stars. Watching her, Lila's heart pounded, but she stepped forward, the key raised. "I'm here," she said, her voice breaking. "Show me the pact." The figures turned, their eyes glowing brighter, their line shifting toward the tower. But the fog thickened, the shadows moving closer, their starry eyes blazing. A voice came, not from the keepers, but from the fog itself, deep and rough, like breaking stone. "Follow us," it said. "Join us." Lila's knees shook, the key burning in her hand. The procession moved faster, the figures gliding toward the black patch in the sky. "Not the tower. No," she shouted, stepping in front of them. "To the tower, bind the pact." The shadows screamed, their claws scraping the ground, their eyes burning. The keepers paused, their glow flickering, like they were caught between two paths. Lila's hand tightened on the key, its stars pulsing red, then white, then blinding. "Bind the pact." She shouted again, her voice steady despite her fear. "Close the door." The figures turned, their line shifting back toward the tower. The shadows rushed forward, their screams tearing at Lila's ears, their claws reaching. Thom grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Old Nan stood firm, her voice sharp. "Keep going, girl. Don't let them pull you." Lila held the key high, its light cutting through the fog. The procession moved, their ghostly shapes gliding toward the tower, their eyes glowing like stars. The shadows screamed louder, their shapes twisting, their starry eyes dimming. The hum was a roar now, shaking the ground, making the trees sway. The tower loomed ahead, its door open, a dark gap waiting. Lila led the procession, the key burning her hand, the journal heavy in her arms. Inside, the air was cold, thick with that sour metallic smell. The spiral staircase creaked, leading to the gear room. The keepers followed, their glow lighting the way, their steps silent but heavy, like they carried the village's weight. At the gear room, the starry door glowed, its cracks pulsing faintly. The gears were still, but their hum vibrated in Lila's chest, matching the key's pulse. The keepers formed a circle around the door, their hands linked, their eyes on Lila. Lila Wren's figure stepped forward, his voice soft, like a whisper in the wind. "You guide us," he said. "Bind the pact." Lila's throat tightened. "How?" she asked, her voice breaking. The figure's eyes glowed brighter. "The heart, yours. Give what you are." The shadows rushed in, their claws scraping the walls, their starry eyes blazing. The gears spun, the hum a scream now, shaking the tower. Lila pressed the key to the door's lock, its stars clicking into place. "Bind the pact," she shouted, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. "Close the door." The door flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The keepers glowed brighter, their circle tightening, their voices whispering, "Bind it with your heart." The gears slowed, the hum quieting, the air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the lock. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. "The procession's gone." Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You guided them. The pact's stronger now." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging from the old cut. "Stronger?" she asked, her voice weak, not sealed. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The pact holds, but the door's still there." The watchers are waiting. Lila looked at the key. Its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the gear's words. "It keeps saying, I have to give." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather gave his life. The watchers took him." Thom's voice was sharp. "Lila's not doing that." Old Nan's eyes were tired. "The door chooses. It always has." Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The gear room was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. "We need to keep going," she said. "The book mentions a bell. Something about it breaking." Old Nan's eyes widened. "The crumbling bell. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it's the tower's last secret. If it breaks, the door might close." Lila flipped through the journal, finding a page about the bell. It read, "The bell chimes the hour that never was. Break it, and the door may close. But the watchers will fight." "We need to find it," she said. "It's our last chance." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. "Then climb higher. The bell's at the tower's top." They hurried up the stairs, the tower creaking, the air lighter but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the stars faint. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the next chime. Chapter 11. The crumbling bell. Lila's hand trembled around the black key, its starry etchings hot and sharp, like they were trying to pull her into the dark. The gear room of the clock tower was silent now, the massive iron wheels still, but the air was thick with the sour metallic temps that stung her throat. The journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt like a weight tying her to the tower. Thom stood close, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale in the dim light from the high windows. Old Nan leaned against the wall, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but heavy with fear, watching the starry door's faint outline, its cracks, sealed but pulsing like a heartbeat. The shadows were quiet, their starry eyes gone for now, but Lila felt them lingering, like a cold whisper on her skin. The tower's last chime, a deep, bone-rattling bong still, echoed in her chest, and the journal's words about the crumbling bell burned in her mind. "Break it, and the door may close." The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her higher. "We need to find the bell," Lila said, her voice shaky but firm. "The book says it's the tower's last secret. It might close the door for good." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "The bell's dangerous, girl. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it chimes the hour that never was. Breaking it could break the tower, or worse." Thom's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the dark. "Worse? How?" The watcher's Old Nan's voice was low. "The bell's tied to the door. Break it, and you might bind the watchers or let them through." Lila's stomach twisted, but she clutched the journal tighter. "We can't stop now. The pact's awake, but the door's still open. The bell's our last chance." Thom nodded, his face pale but set. "Then we climb to the top." They moved to the spiral staircase, its iron steps creaking under their boots. The air grew colder, the metallic smell stronger, mixed with that sour tang that made Lila's nose burn. The hum was faint but growing, a pulse in the walls, matching. The keys beat. Lila led the way, the journal heavy in her arms, the key burning in her pocket. Thom followed, his lantern raised, though its light was gone. Old Nan was last, her steps slow but steady, muttering under her breath like a prayer. The stairs twisted higher, narrower, the walls closing in. The hum grew louder, vibrating in Lila's chest, making her teeth ache. The air felt wrong, like it was pressing down, heavy with secrets. The journal's words looped in her mind. "The bell chimes the hour that never was." Her thumb stung from the cut in the graveyard, a reminder of the blood she'd already given. The staircase ended at a wooden trapdoor, its surface carved with eyes and spirals, glowing faintly. A starry lock pulsed in its center, matching the key. Lila's hand shook as she pulled the key from her pocket. Its stars glowed red, bright against the dark. "This is it," she whispered, her voice trembling. Thom's hand was on her shoulder, his voice low. "You sure about this?" "No," Lila said, her throat dry. "But we're here." Old Nan's eyes were wide. "Be careful, girl. The bell's not just metal. It's alive." Lila pressed the key to the lock, its stars clicking into place. The trapdoor shook, the hum a low growl, vibrating in her bones. The wood creaked open, revealing a small round room lit by a faint red glow. The air was thick, heavy with that sour metallic smell, and something new, something old, like dust and time. At the center hung a massive bell, its iron cracked and pitted, carved with tiny stars. It swayed slightly, though no wind touched it, its hum shaking the floor. "The crumbling bell," Lila said, her voice barely a whisper. Thom stepped closer, his face pale. "It's wrong, like it's watching us." Old Nan's voice was sharp. "It is. The bell's the tower's voice. It chimes for the watchers." Lila opened the journal, finding the page about the bell. It read, "The bell chimes the hour. That never was. Break it, and the door may close. But the watchers will fight. Blood wakes it. The heart breaks it." Her stomach twisted. "Blood again," she said, her thumb stinging. Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The bell's tied to the door. Blood wakes it, but breaking it needs more." The hum grew louder, the bell swaying faster, its stars glowing red, like the keys. Shadows flickered in the corners, tall and thin, their starry eyes glinting. Lila's heart raced, but she stepped to the bell, the key burning in her hand. She pressed her thumb to its edge, letting a drop of blood fall onto the bell's starry carving. The hum screamed, the bell shaking, its glow flaring white, then blinding. A voice came, not from the shadows but from the bell itself, deep and rough, like breaking iron. "You wake us," it said. "You call us." Lila stumbled back, her hand stinging. The shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the walls, their starry eyes blazing. The bell swung, its hum a roar, shaking the tower. Thom grabbed her arm, his face pale. "What's happening?" Old Nan's voice was sharp. "You woke it, now break it." The voice came again, louder, filling the room. "The heart breaks. The bell. Give what you are." Lila's chest tightened. "Give what I am," she shouted, her voice breaking. "What does that mean?" The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes burning brighter. The bell swung faster, its glow showing glimpses of the starry Voidrong stars, spinning in a black sky. Lila's knees shook, but she held the key tight, pressing it to the bell's starry carving. "Break the bell," she shouted, her voice steady despite her fear. "Close the door." The bell flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. A crack split the bell, loud as thunder, its iron crumbling, dust falling like rain. The hum stopped, the air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the carving. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. "The bell's broken." Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You broke it. The door's weaker now." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging. "Weaker?" she asked, her voice weak. "Not closed." Old Nan nodded, her face grim. "The bell was part of the door. You cracked it, but the watchers are still there." Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the bell's words. "It keeps saying I have to give." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather gave his life. The watchers took him." Thom's voice was sharp. "Lila's not doing that." Old Nan's eyes were tired. "The door chooses. It always has." Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The bell room was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. "We need to keep going," she said. "The book mentions a veil, something about the watchers hiding behind it." Old Nan's eyes widened. "The veil of stars. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it's what hides the watcher's true form. If you tear it, you might see how to close the door." Lila flipped through the journal, finding a page about the veil. It read, "The veil of stars hides the watcher's truth. Tear it, and the door may close. But the heart must face them." "We need to find it," she said. "It's our last chance." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. "Then go to the tower's base. The veil's there, where the door began." They hurried down the stairs, the tower creaking, the air lighter but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the stars faint. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, But Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the next chime. Chapter 12. The Veil of Stars. Lila's fingers burned where the black key touched her, its starry etchings hot and sharp, like they were alive with secrets. The bellroom of the clock tower was silent now. The crumbling bell split and dark, its iron dust scattered across the floor. The air was thick with the sour metallic temps that clung to her throat, and the journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt heavier than ever, pulling her toward truths she wasn't sure she could face. Thom stood close, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale in the dim light from the tower's high windows. Old Nan leaned against the wall, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but heavy with fear, watching the starry door's faint outline in the gear room below, its cracks sealed but pulsing faintly. The shadows were quiet, their starry eyes gone for now, but Lila felt them lingering like a cold shadow on her heart. The tower's last chime, a deep bone-rattling bong still, echoed in her chest, and the journal's words about the Veil of Stars burned in her mind. Tear it, and the door may close. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her to the tower's base. We broke the bell, Lila said, her voice shaky but firm, but the door's still open. We need to find the veil. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. The veil's dangerous, girl. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it hides the Watcher's true form. Tearing it could show you how to close the door, or let them through. Thom's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the dark. Let them through. We're trying to stop them. Old Nan's voice was low. The veil's what keeps them back. Tear it, and you'll see them, really see them. That's not something you forget. Lila's stomach twisted, but she clutched the journal tighter. We can't stop now. The pact's awake. The bell's broken. The veil's our last chance. Thom nodded, his face pale but set. Then we go to the base. Together. They hurried down the spiral staircase, the steps creaking, the air colder with each step. The metallic smell grew stronger, mixed with that sour tempt that made Lila's nose burn. The hum was faint but growing, a pulse in the walls, matching the key's beat. Lila led the way, the journal heavy in her arms, the key burning in her pocket. Thom followed, his lantern raised, though its light was gone. Old Nan was last, her steps slow but steady, muttering under her breath like a prayer. The stairs ended at the tower's base, where the stone door to the chamber still stood, its starry lock dark now, but the journal had pointed them lower, to where the tower's roots met the earth. Lila scanned the floor, her heart racing. The book said the veil's where the door began. She said, "There's got to be something here." Old Nan knelt, her fingers brushing the stone. "Look for a mark, a star, like the keys." Lila and Thom searched, their hands scraping the cold, rough floor. The hum grew louder, coming from the tower, a low growl that shook the air. Shadows flickered in the corners, their starry eyes glinting, staying just out of reach. Lila's pocket burned, the key pulsing like a heartbeat. "There," Thom said, pointing to a faint carving in the flora. "Star, etched deep, its lines glowing faintly, like the key's etchings." Lila pulled the key from her pocket, its stars glowing red, matching the seal. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice trembling. Old Nan's eyes were wide. "The veil's behind it. Use the key. Tear it open." Thom's face paled. "Tear it? What if the Watchers come through?" Old Nan's voice was sharp. "You'll see them. That's the point. The heart must face them." Lila's hand shook, the key burning. She pressed it to the star, its stars clicking into place. The floor shook, the hum a scream now, tearing at her ears. The star glowed, red and bright, spreading light across the stone. Shadows rushed forward, tall and thin, their starry eyes blazing, their claws scraping the floor. A voice came, not from the shadows, but from the star itself, deep and rough, like breaking earth. "You tear the veil," it said. "You see us." Lila stumbled back, her hands stinging. The shadows screamed, their shapes twisting, their eyes burning brighter. The star's light flared, showing a shimmering curtain in the air, like a sheet of stars, flickering with wrong, spinning lights. Beyond it, Lila saw them, Watchers, not just shadows but shapes, tall and thin, their forms shifting, their starry eyes endless. Knowing her, Lila's knees shook, but she held the key steady, its glow cutting through the dark. "I see you," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Show me how to close the door." The veil pulsed, the Watcher's eyes blazing, their shapes stretching, like they were trying to break through. The voice came again, louder, filling the room. The heart faces us. Give what you are. Lila's chest tightened. Give what? She shouted, her voice trembling. Tell me. The watchers screamed, their claws reaching through the veil, their starry eyes burning. The veil shimmered, showing glimpses of the void-wrong stars, spinning in a black sky, pulling at her mind. Lila's hand tightened on the key, its stars pulsing red, then white, then blinding. Close the door, she shouted, her voice steady despite her fear. Bind the veil. The light flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The veil shook, its stars fading, the watchers' forms blurring. The hum stopped, the air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the star. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. You did it, he said, his voice shaky. The veil's gone. Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. You faced them. That's more than any keeper did. Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging from the old cut. The door, she asked, her voice weak. Is it closed? Old Nan shook her head, her face grim. The veil's torn, the watchers are weaker, but the door's still there. Lila looked at the key, its stars dull now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. What's the price? She asked, remembering the veil's words. It keeps saying I have to give. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. Your great-grandfather gave his life. The watchers took him. Thom's voice was sharp. Lila's not doing that. Old Nan's eyes were tired. The door chooses, it always has. Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The base was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. We need to keep going, she said. The book mentions a final binding, something about the tower's end. Old Nan's eyes widened. The binding of the door, your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it's the last act of the keeper. It's in the book. Lila flipped through the journal, finding a page about the binding. It read, the door can be bound, but the keeper must stand alone. The heart must give all. We need to find it, she said. It's our last chance. Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together. Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue. Then go to the door itself. The binding's there. They hurried up the stairs, the tower creaking, the air lighter but still wrong. Outside, the fog was thin, the village solid again, but the sky was dark, the stars faint. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the watcher's eyes, waiting for the final chime. Chapter 13. The binding of the door. Lila's hand shook as she gripped the black key, its starry etchings hot and sharp, like they were trying to pull her into the dark. The clock tower's base was silent now, the torn veil of stars gone, but the air was thick with the sour, metallic temps that burned her throat. The journal in her arms, her great-grandfather's words scrawled across yellowed pages, felt like a chain tying her to the tower. Thom stood close, his cracked lantern useless, his face pale in the dim light from the tower's cracked walls. Old Nan leaned against the stone, her scarf loose, her eyes sharp but heavy with dread, watching the starry door's faint outline in the gear room above. Its cracks, sealed but pulsing like a faint heartbeat. The shadows were quiet, their starry eyes gone for now, but Lila felt them lingering, like a cold weight on her chest. The tower's last chimer, deep, bone-rattling bong still echoed in her mind, and the journal's words about the final binding burned in her thoughts. The door can be bound, but the keeper must stand alone. The key in her pocket pulsed, its heat spreading up her arm, urging her back to the gear room. We tore the veil, Lila said, her voice shaky but firm, but the door's still open. We need to bind it. Old Nan's lips pressed thin. The binding's the last act. Girl, your great-grandfather never reached it. He wrote, it's the keeper's end. Thom's jaw tightened, his eyes darting to the stairs. Her end. You mean? Old Nan's voice was low. The door demands a price. Always has. The keeper must give all. Lila's stomach twisted, but she clutched the journal tighter. I'm not giving up. The book says the heart can close it. We just need to figure out how. Thom stepped closer, his hand on her shoulder. We'll do it together. Old Nan's eyes darkened. The book says alone, boy. The keeper stands alone. Lila's throat tightened, but she shook her head. We've come this far together. I'm not leaving you behind. The hum started again, faint but growing, a pulse in the walls. Lila's pocket burned, the keys stars glowing through her coat. "They're waking," she said, her voice low. "We need to move." They hurried up the spiral staircase, the steps creaking, the air colder with each step. The metallic smell grew stronger, mixed with that sour tang that made Lila's nose burn. The hum was louder in the gear room, vibrating in her chest, matching the key's pulse. The massive iron wheels were still, but their starry carvings glowed faintly, like they were watching. The starry door pulsed on the wall, its cracks sealed but trembling, like it was ready to break. Lila opened the journal, her hands sweaty. The pages were heavy with sketches, gears, stars, the Durant tight, slanted writing. She found a page, titled "The Binding of the Door." It showed the starry door, its lock glowing, with a figure standing before it, holding the key. Words read, "The door can be bound, but the keeper must stand alone. The heart must give all. Blood calls. The heart seals. Stand alone," Lila whispered, her stomach twisting. "What does it want?" Old Nan's voice was grim. "Your great-grandfather tried. He stood before the door, gave his blood. The Watchers took him." Thom's face paled. "Took him where?" Old Nan's eyes were hard. "The void, beyond, the door, where the stars aren't stars." Lila's hand went to the key in her pocket. It was burning now, its stars glowing red, almost too hot to hold. She pulled it out, its light cutting through the dark. "I have to try," she said, her voice trembling. "If I don't, the Watchers will come through." Thom grabbed her arm, his grip tight. "You're not going alone." Lila met his eyes, her heart pounding. "I have to. The book says so." Old Nan's voice was sharp. "Be sure, girl. The door's not kind. It'll ask for everything." The hum grew louder, the gears twitching like they were waking. Shadows flickered in the corners, tall and thin, their starry eyes glinting. Lila's heart raced, but she stepped to the door, the key burning in her hand. She pressed it to the starry lock, its stars clicking into place. The door pulsed, the cracks glowing red like blood in the light. The hum was a scream now, tearing at her ears. Shadows rushed forward, their claws scraping the walls, their starry eyes blazing. A voice came, not from the gears but from the door itself, deep and rough, like breaking stone. "You stand alone," it said. "Give what you are." Lila's knees shook, but she held the key steady, its glow cutting through the dark. The door's cracks widened, showing the starry void-wrong stars, spinning in a black sky, pulling at her mind. She saw the Watchers, their shapes shifting, their starry eyes endless. Knowing her fears, her hopes, her heart, "I bind the door," she shouted, her voice breaking. "Close it." The light flared, blinding, the shadows screaming, their shapes twisting, their eyes dimming. The door shook, its cracks sealing, the red glow fading. The gears spun, then stopped, the hum quieting. The air still. Lila's hand burned, the key stuck in the lock. She yanked it free, stumbling back. Thom caught her, his face pale. "You did it," he said, his voice shaky. The door's quiet. Old Nan knelt beside her, her eyes wide. "You bound it. That's more than any keeper did." Lila's chest heaved, her thumb stinging from the old cut. "Is it closed?" she asked, her voice weak. Old Nan shook her head, her face grim. "Bound, not closed. The Watchers are weaker, but they're still there." Lila looked at the key, its stars dulled now, like they were sleeping. The journal lay open at her feet, its pages fluttering. "What's the price?" she asked, remembering the door's words. It said, "I have to give." Old Nan's lips pressed thin. "Your great-grandfather gave his life. The Watchers took him." Thom's voice was sharp. "Lila's not doing that." Old Nan's eyes were tired. "The door chooses, always has." Lila stood, her legs shaky, the key and journal in her hands. The gear room was quiet, but the air still smelled of iron, the walls still watching. "There's got to be more," she said. "The book mentions a final act, something about the keeper's end." Old Nan's eyes widened. "The keeper's end. Your great-grandfather wrote about it, said it's the last secret. The door's final price." Lila flipped through the journal, finding a page about the keeper's end. It read, "The keeper's end is the door's end. Stand in the void, and give all. The heart seals it. Stand in the void," she said, her voice trembling. "What's that mean?" Thom's face paled. "You're not going in there." Old Nan's voice was low. "It's where the Watchers live. Beyond the door. It's the only way to close it." Lila's heart pounded, the key burning in her hand. The door was quiet, but she felt the Watcher's eyes, waiting in the void. "We need to finish this," she said. "For the village." Thom nodded, his hand on her shoulder. Together, Old Nan's eyes were hard, but she didn't argue, then faced the door. The void's there. They stood before the starry door, its cracks faint but pulsing. The key was warm, the journal heavy with secrets. The tower was silent, but Lila felt the Watcher's eyes, waiting for the final chime. The void was calling, and the keeper's end was near.